Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Eden's Garden tier list. I'm going to combine two video ideas, sort of, for this one. One is going to be my predictions going forward in the story, and the other is just going to be like a little bit of my overall thoughts and blanket review, I guess, of Chapter 1. So let me just start by saying, the music, it didn't really stand out to me much in the prologue, but this chapter, yeah, man, this is like probably my favorite Danganronpa soundtrack already. which I get, you know what, it is a pretty hard bar. Maybe it's just because I've heard the other ones so much that they feel so played out to me that I hear this and it's got some fresh sort of zhuzh in it. And it makes me very excited. Anyway, I think Danganronpa 2's soundtrack is very good, but I think I like this one better. V3's got a couple good songs, but most of his tracks I find are pretty just okay, you know, which is the same with Danganronpa 1. They're good for setting the mood, but they don't really stand out, in my opinion. Also, the visuals are always good. I think there was like one sprite maybe that I thought looked weird, but other than that, big thumbs ups. Okay. So, this is your last chance to get out of the video before spoilers. 3, 2, 1. So what this tells me, Chapter 1, is my predictions from last time were kind of based on the idea of breaking the Danganronpa tropes, right? Well, this one has a very Sayaka-esque character kill a very important character in an unexpected place, and we'll probably find out more about Wolfgang later, which is like the most adhering to the Danganronpa tropes you could do, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. You can definitely play around with them a lot. They made 3 whole games, and it didn't really feel that stale, so I think that's totally fine. But what it does say is it informs my predictions for the next chapters. In a way that's actually, you know, a little more interesting, because my guesswork can be a little more founded on evidence, I guess. So, just for now, I mean, it's possible one of the masterminds doesn't die in Chapter 6, but, you know, past precedent would say they're probably not going to live through Chapter 6. So, Chapter 2. This is the heart of the group dying. Uh-oh. Oh no. Not again. I don't know if Diana is actually going to fill that role or not. Because she feels more like she could end up being like a foil, I guess, to Damon. In the same way Eva kind of was as well. In a different way, obviously. Whereas the heart of the group, I would actually say, is probably either Jean or Ingrid. And we got a lot of Jean in this chapter. Like, a lot of Jean. So I'm going to say he's probably going to die in the next chapter, one way or another. As for the killer, that's a little bit harder to nail down, right? So maybe I'll go through and I'll fill in the victims in each case, and it'll be easier then to figure out the killers after that. So Chapter 3 is the double murder. It's usually the people who are just like too... what's the opposite of ruthless? Ruthful? To continue living, essentially. Like somebody like Ibuki, who's just kind of there, even though she's a great character in her FTEs anyway. She doesn't really add that much to the group that we haven't already explored, right? In terms of her, like, hearing something out of the ordinary. So that's also a little hard. But, I mean, there are characters that feel like they would fill this slot. Mark, Jet, maybe Eloise and Desmond. Oh, and, well, the problem is I feel like there's another element to Cassidy we haven't gotten yet. You know what I mean? And maybe it'll come out in one of these other chapters. But I feel like something has to happen that she survives that's going to allow us to explore her character, you know? Either that or she's going to kill somebody, I guess, one way or the other. Ulysses is also kind of on the list. Let me just move them all into one row, and I'll try to figure out what I'm thinking here. Jet feels like such a Chapter 3 victim if it's a double murder, you know? Like I know some people like him, but he's such a middling character of like, well, he's kind of cool, but like I don't really care. He's not my favorite, you know? And if it's Jet, that maybe feels like it would be Mark as well. Right? Because they're buddy-buddy. And maybe Mark's the killer. Or maybe Jet's the killer. If I was going to set them up as a group, I would do this. Like, the three of them as a group does feel kind of cemented at this point. But I feel like Cassidy would be on the outside of it and have to reckon with it. Like I was just saying, right? So we'll leave these two as victims for now, and we'll come back and try to plop somebody else in Chapter 3. So Chapter 4 is usually, like, I guess you could say the sacrifice? Like, someone who dies for the sake of everyone else. Which, now that does sound like it could be Diana. But at the same time, there are a few other characters that I could kind of see taking that role. The reason I say Diana is because Damon's arc is eventually going to lead him to becoming, like, the ultimate hope or whatever of this game, right? Probably. So that means that Diana, if she is going to, like, lead the group from now on, would have to kind of die for that to happen. So yeah, I do kind of feel like that could make sense. And then Chapter 5 is the impossible murder. And that one's really hard to pin somebody on, you know? Usually it's like very plot relevant, important characters. So maybe Diana actually goes here. I don't know, that kind of feels right. But I think I'm saying that based on my presumption already that Winona is going to end up being like the Byakuya of this game. Yeah, we'll stick with it for now, okay? So Chapter 4 is the sacrifice. That's the other character I could see it being. So Grace right now is like super abrasive and doesn't care about people dying who she thinks are bad, right? So her sacrificing herself for the group would be like a satisfying character arc, I would say. Makes sense. I'm going to put Damon in Survivor right now because I assume these two would be survivors, but then they died. But I really don't think Damon's going to die because he's got too much growth to do, right? And that leaves me with a pretty interesting list of candidates here. Oh, you know... I've changed my mind. If we were going to have... Actually, no, I think that's what I was thinking. A sacrifice that propels the group. Toshiko would be a character who would motivate everyone to, you know, be brave. If the 13-year-old could do it, we can do it, you know? Yeah, maybe. I know there's, like, theories going around right now that Toshiko might be, like, the traitor. But, again, this chapter is kind of about, like, Sakura was also the traitor, right? That's not, like, necessarily a death sentence to her being the sacrifice in Chapter 4. So Cassidy feels like she's got a lot of growing to do, so I'll put her at the end. Grace also feels like she has a lot of growing to do, but I could see her dying, but I don't know. which only leaves 2 guys, and surely not. It's not just going to be Damon who survives. Oh no, Kai as well. He was on the end. I didn't see him. So, out of these 3, I don't know. It kind of feels like Kai. This feels so like I'm being baited by Chapter 1 right now, because all of these characters had like some role to play in Chapter 1. Like Cassidy, yeah. And then we still, I don't know if, I think I'm going to leave just Toshiko in Chapter 4. I don't think I'm going to have a killer right now. Well, if there was to be a killer, who would it be? Oh, if you wanted to do the most tragic thing ever, it would be these 2, right? Where, like, Toshiko or Ingrid ends up being the killer somehow, even though she wasn't the one who actually, like, hurt Toshiko. And that's, like, the sacrifice to protect someone else. I don't know. So that leaves, I need to settle on a Chapter 3 killer and a Chapter 2 character of these 3. And then the other one would be a survivor. It's hard. Obviously, it's hard because we have no information, but like none of these 3 seem particularly susceptible to a certain motive is my problem, I think. So maybe it's actually this. Yeah, maybe, because that would explain why we spent so much time with Kai in this chapter, right? Okay, I kind of dig that. But who is the Chapter 3 killer then? I guess Mark would be the Chapter 3 killer, in my thoughts. Can you imagine if this guy ends up being a survivor and I've just blamed him of being a killer in like every case? He's just got killer vibes to me, you know? So Jet and... Well, Jet would be the collateral, basically, I'd say. Like, he didn't intend to kill Jet. He was going to kill somebody else, and Jet just happened to be there because he's trying to find Mark or whatever. So if he was going to go for somebody, it'd probably be Ulysses, I'd say. Of these 2, like the marksman or a sword fighter, I think you'd probably pick the historian. Especially if you're Mark, someone who's been noted as like one of the weaker students in terms of killing potential. And actually, Jet is quite strong, so maybe like Mark kills Ulysses and then Jet kills Mark in that scenario. I don't know. I've kind of put it so the killers are on the right side, so I'll just make that normal. Which would then leave Desmond and Eloise as survivors, which does feel a little weird because they're already like a team right now. So like for their character to have trajectory, you would think something would happen to one of them, right? That would propel the other. And of the 2 of them, it seems like it would be Desmond. But I can't think of a single place he would fit in the way I've set things up here. So, unless it's like right here in Chapter 5 instead of Winona. But yeah, then it's Damon and 4 girls again, which just from like a planning standpoint, you probably wouldn't do that, right? I do feel like Ulysses has a decent chance of being a survivor, just because there's like a lot of depth to mine with his character. So maybe it's, but it would probably be, does that make sense? thematically, because then everybody who's a survivor lost somebody, right, and had to deal with that. Grace lost Wolfgang, Damon lost Eva, and then is inspired by Diana or whatever. And Cassidy lost Jet and Mark, and Desmond lost Eloise. I could see that. I do think, and this is kind of a funny thing to just bring up, but I do think the creators of this game, or the writing team anyway, have like a similar brain to me when it comes to Danganronpa. So I could see this being more true than not. Just like a lot of the stuff they did in Chapter 1 was stuff like I was thinking for my own Chapter 1 in Danganronpa International. Not exactly, but like a similar idea. Roommates. I mean, I talked about that on the stream, so that's not a spoiler. Something to do with the tape, which I won't spoil. A character who writes everything down, and then their writings become important later. What else? What was the other thing? Oh, well, Toshiko is not... There's not a character like that in Danganronpa International. But Toshiko kind of follows along with my thing of saying, like, they should make the students different ages, because it would be more interesting if some of them were older and some of them were younger, and it, like, changed the way they thought about things. And they did that in this as well. Oh, also, Diana's whole, like, spark of hope thing is a little similar to something that wouldn't have happened in my Chapter 1, but would have happened later. Anyway, I think just, like, mathing it out, this feels right to me. So, we'll see how close I am, because I was very wrong last time. Anyway, I just wanted to, like, finish this video by giving my little review of the game so far. I think during my playthrough, I said, like, a couple things I would change. Is, like, some of the controls feel a little unnatural to me. I didn't play Danganronpa on keyboard, though, so maybe they're just, like, replicating the Danganronpa keyboard controls. Because Danganronpa's controls are also a little wonky in a lot of ways. And then I already complained in the character ranking video about Eva's motive being undermined at the very last second by saying, oh yeah, there was a countdown and she had to kill. That was something I didn't like. What else did I not like? Damon didn't have... I didn't get a good sense of, like, Damon's feelings, I guess, a lot of the time. He was more just, like, narrating about the scene, which is, like, you know, he has to do that too, but given we've got a look in his mind, it makes sense that he's stoic on the outside, but I'd like to get a little bit more emotional depth from him on the inside, which maybe that's just coming, and that's why we haven't got it yet. Again, only Chapter 1. There was some long loading times, which I don't think it was because I was recording, but it could have been. My computer's usually pretty good with a lot of games. I think the only games that have lagged on my PC while I was recording have been, like, Minecraft, which, like, is a performance mess anyway. What else? There's definitely, like, something, a DS game or something that messed with my computer. Oh, no. I was thinking of The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker when I did the Wind Waker randomizer on a totally legit GameCube. Anyway, so I feel like that might be something to do with performance. I think it can be mitigated pretty easily just by not placing you in the dorm as much. Like, I know that's, like, the Danganronpa standard, but if there's going to be lag between the dorm and the rest of the school, then don't do that. Like, I should only have to go to the dorm very infrequently then. If it's not a problem, that can be solved. Anyway. There were, like, a couple typos, but that's, like, whatever. I talked about Jean By the way, this is my favorite song on the soundtrack right now. It's out of nowhere. Anyway, I complained about Jean being like too perfect at everything, but I guess maybe if he's gonna die in chapter 2, that's the point. I didn't really think about that until now. So you can, I don't think I'd change his ranking because I don't know if they're gonna do that or not. But yeah, the only other thing I would say is I'm maybe a little worried about the mid game of this game, because Danganronpa V3 also did something kind of like they've done here with Chapter 1, where they kind of went all out, right? And they really couldn't recapture that steam until, like, the very end. And even then, it felt like it was too little too late. Like, the actual mechanics of the cases were fine. Probably the best in the series in V3. The problem was that I feel like the characters really didn't get a chance to shine very much for me. A lot of them felt very bland. So I didn't really have any emotional stakes in the story. So I think Eden's Garden's got a little bit of a step up on V3 already. However, just thinking about all these mystery games that have a really, like, bombastic first case and then, like, the rest of the game's kind of mid and it leads to a sour conclusion. Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney, and Danganronpa V3 are the ones that come to mind. I like Apollo Justice, though. I don't really like V3, unfortunately. But I do like Apollo Justice. And I think final cases in Danganronpa games are, like, really hard. I don't think there's been a single one that's got it right other than Danganronpa 2. And that's why everybody's like, that's the best one, you know? Like, V3's was kind of bullshit, and Danganronpa 1's was very bullshit. The part that makes Danganronpa 1's trial cool is, like, Junko's motivations, but that's not even actually in the game. You have to wait, like, until the anime and, like, the manga to, like, figure out what her actual ultimate talent is and her motivation is. So that one's kind of bad. The Danganronpa Another games, Another 1's ending is fine. It's, like, functional, but it's not very interesting to me. And then, probably because I knew the twist, to be fair. If I didn't know the twist, maybe it would be more interesting, but it's also, like, the most played out trope in detective fiction anyway, so maybe not. That isn't to say you can't do an overplayed trope and it can still be fun. It's just, you know, relying on it as a twist is a little less interesting. And then Danganronpa Another 2's ending was also, like, the only disappointing thing about that game for me. It just felt like a little too grim for everybody, and it felt like the story peaked at the end of Chapter 5, and then it was just kind of, like, coasting until we got to the ending, you know? So, there's pretty big shoes to fill, and killing off probably the two most interesting characters thus far makes those shoes even deeper. There's a lot of, like, character work to be done in order to make this feel satisfying, is basically what I'm saying. So, as the guy who's mainly focused on character, I'll be watching it like a hawk, and I'll let you know how I feel when Chapter 2 comes out. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me your predictions for at least who's going to survive. Tell me your predictions for that. And then if you want to do all the chapters, feel free. I'm interested to know if you think my predictions are stupid or not. I mean, they feel like possible. It's just obviously there's not a lot to go on other than the Danganronpa tropes. So anyway, that's it. Bye-bye.